In this video, we are talking all about big moves happening at Universal around Nintendo. We got our Nintendo guy, Mr. Seymour Duck, here to break it all down, talk about it. A lot to discuss here. A lot of good, actually, good positive news in regards to this story. We're going to break it down up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We're talking Universal, we're talking Pokemon, Nintendo, all that good stuff. Before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic panel. We got the Italiano back on the show. It's been a long time, George. How you doing? It's been, what, like 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Since I've seen you last, right?
Absolutely.
So if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
And since we're talking Nintendo today, I got to use my new Nintendo drops. There we go. You're officially in, George. Thank you so much, sir. And Seymour Duck, it's always fun having you on, Seymour. Thank you so much. And you know you're the man to break this down with us because you're a really passionate Nintendo fan. So we're excited to talk about this. This new development.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Love talking about Nintendo.
Absolutely. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Oh yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There he is, and here we go. I'll chime you in, Seymour. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the topic at hand. This is from Orlando Park Stop. And I do also want to give a shout out actually to Universal Core. He's a great account on Twitter, friend of the channel. He also breaks like a lot of Universal scoops, and he has an excellent track record. He's been talking about this stuff as well. So I want to give him a little bit of a shout out. But this is from Orlando Park Stop, Alicia Stella. Universal Orlando rumors Pokemon replacing The Simpsons, Zelda in the Lost Continent, and Luigi's Mansion for Epic Universe. So it says here the first Nintendo-based land for Universal Orlando will open at Epic Universe next year. But rumors suggest we may see additional lands based on video game franchises in the coming years as well. Pokemon, now rumored to replace The Simpsons in Universal Studios Florida. I got a lot of thoughts about that. Zelda is still expected to take over the Lost Continent at Islands of Adventure. And we may even see Luigi's Mansion added to Epic Universe. This is crazy. Seymour, what are your thoughts on this, man? Like, what are your thoughts on these brands coming into the Universal parks and what they're replacing as well?
Well, I've been touting before how I didn't feel like it was worth for me going to Epic Universe because of the lack of IP. But now with all these IP, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm considering going to Epic Universe. Because I was always talking about how the IPs that I like were in Universal Studios Japan. And now it feels like that's all coming to stateside. And I'm all for it. And plus, when you think of Nintendo, the top 3 IPs are the Mario Brothers, Zelda, and Pokemon. And that's all you're getting here, right? That's all the big 3.
Yeah.
Even though, like Pokemon, it is 32% owned by Nintendo, and there's 2 other parties, Creature and Game Freak. Because the inner workings of the company, Nintendo does get 50% of the net profit. So, like, Pokemon is huge for Nintendo, and they own the trademark worldwide, outside of Japan. So the Pokemon company owns it in Japan. That's why they're crazy there. They don't have that permission they needed from Nintendo. But to get Pokemon and Zelda, including the Mario's brothers in the studios in Universal, yes, please.
Yeah, no,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, and it saves you a little money on the plane trip, right, Seymour? Like you don't got to go all the way to Japan now. You can just go to Florida.
I mean, it's Japan though. I want to get my cheap Wagyu beef.
That's true. I know. We've been talking. George and I have been talking about going down to Japan. George, we got to get serious about that, brother.
Yeah, we do.
Because I mean that would be a trip and a half. I mean, theme parks aside, I just like I'm like with Seymour. I want to just go to
Just the
Japan.
culture, yeah, just the culture, just to see. Because I mean, like they're eons ahead of us, so I mean, I could imagine.
I know we always joke around about on the show that they're like an advanced like civilization, like way beyond us. You know what I'm saying? But what are your thoughts on this, George? Like, I mean, this is crazy, right? Pokemon to replace Simpsons. Zelda coming in. You got Luigi's Mansion, which I have a lot of thoughts on Luigi's Mansion. A lot of good thoughts. I mean, I think it was actually a brilliant decision on, well, whether it's Universal or Nintendo's decision. I'm not really sure who made that call, but that's a smart IP for these parks. But what are your overall thoughts, George?
Yeah, I think Universal is doing it right. You know, you give credit where credit's due, and I think that they're picking some strong, heavy, hard-hitting IPs, especially to replace the some of IPs that aren't really doing so hot in the parks. Not saying that the Simpsons aren't popular; they're very well, popular in the streaming world. On Disney Plus, they're crushing it. It's the longest running a television series on primetime. But when it comes to the theme park world, there's only so much that you can do with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's on its last leg. So to be able to put a franchise like Pokemon that's basically evergreen in a sense that it just keeps on going and going no matter like what the storyline is, they keep on adding new Pokemon. You have the original Pokemon, so basically with Pikachu, you're replacing yellow with yellow. It's like
yeah, just about. Well, it's interesting because it is a very evergreen franchise, but it's also very nostalgic for people your age, George, like those 90s kids,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was huge in the 90s, huge.
And then with Zelda, if that replaces the Lost Continent, I mean, yeah, they'll still have to kind of update some things, but they kind of already have that articulate style, with Zelda. You kind of can just kind of maneuver and add some things to it, which again, the Lost Continent is basically, I mean, it's nice, but it was an original land part of Islands of Adventure when it first opened back in 1999. I think it's a bit outdated. They tried to kind of give it, new life by updating Poseidon's Fury, but it's not something that people will actually travel to go see. It is what it is. But to add Zelda into it, where it could eventually add more life even to that IP itself, because with film, with Zelda possibly coming to the big screen and what have you, it can kind of tie into the theme park world. And then with Luigi's Mansion, I mean, that was a popular game, so to kind of incorporate that into Super Nintendo world of already having Mario Kart and Donkey Kong Country, and it's like that's just gonna be the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and I've talked about it a lot. I'm actually going to play a video for you guys in a second in regards to Luigi's Mansion, but I've actually talked about it a lot. Where The Simpsons is a great property, it's a great IP, but it's a great IP for streaming and like television.
I would disagree, but I might be the minority though on that one.
Oh, go ahead, Seymour. I'd like to hear your take on that.
Oh no, I just the people around me, all the friends, we were Simpsons fans from the beginning, and even from Universal, we loved The Simpsons. But like I said, I'm probably the 1% on that. I'm a minority, so if it's not doing well in the parks, they have the data for that, right? But I would disagree. But I mean, I'm not the one that makes the changes in there, so.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. No, I'm glad that I'm glad that you spoke up about that, because it's like, it's interesting because like for me personally, I've never been intrigued by it, but there is a case to be made there where it's like, where it's okay, this is if it's like your favorite show or you really enjoy the show, that alone might be enough to like, compel people to kind of be into like going to that into that environment,
Yeah, I think it's an iconic IP still. Like, I remember when the movie came out, and that was a huge success at the time. I think 2007 made over 500 million, so that was pretty good at the time with inflation. And then even the marketing for that, every 7-Eleven turned into a Quickie Mart. And you could buy Buzz Cola, the donuts. Like, me and my friends were all for it. I don't know, maybe times have changed, but...
Well, as I said, Seymour, I'm still a huge Simpsons fan, and yeah, it was 2000. It was July 27th, 2007. I will know because I was standing outside of the theater doors waiting for it to open because I personally, um, I had uh, I wrote a letter to Matt Groening,
What?
that I said this was before. This was before anything like that. It was even mentioned of a Simpsons movie, and I had wrote him like about like 8 years prior, saying I would love to see a Simpsons movie. And I told him where I was from. I was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. And I don't think this has any correlation in it or anything, but there's a line in the movie that Lisa mentions the city of Pittsburgh. So he never got back to me. He never like wrote back, but I just thought that that was kind of interesting. That I don't know if my letter had anything to do with anything, but
Well, we do know that Universal stole your idea with migration too. Remember?
they did. I,
Seymour, I don't know if you heard George's story, but he actually wrote a what was it, like a screenplay, George, or something for.
it was for my call. Yeah, it was a college assignment since I got my degree in creative writing, and I wrote a. It had to be something based off of, like, if I was to write a screenplay, it had to be for an animated film. So I came up with the concept of this duck that has no sense of direction whatsoever, and he and his family were flying south for the winter, and he ends up going off course, and he has to find his way by himself. And again, him being like someone who cannot finagle direction whatsoever,
Yeah.
you know, he has to find his way to his family. And I titled it South.
Right.
And I thought, well, that would be kind of a cool kind of animated film. That's something that I would want to go see. And
Right.
I depicted as I was writing it. I was thinking for it to be a Pixar film. So like
Right.
I'm at Starbucks, I'm at Barnes and Noble with my laptop and everything, and sure enough, many like years later, they come up with this movie Migration. I was like, those
Mm,
SOBs, they took my idea.
I'm telling you, man. Brian Roberts was standing over your shoulder. You didn't even know it, dude. You didn't even know it. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, this is interesting stuff coming out of Universal. You know, I really want look, I really want to talk about Luigi's Mansion because I think Luigi's Mansion has a ton of potential when it comes to like that theme park experience. I want to play. This is actually from Japan, Disney, Tokyo Disneyland. This is their interactive Monsters Inc. ride called Monsters Inc. Ride and Go Seek. Now you use flashlights to interact with the environment. And I'm like, oh, when they announced Luigi's Mansion, I'm like, they should do something similar to this. And when I think Luigi's Mansion, you're going through this crazy little haunted house, right? And you would do probably something similar to this, where the flashlights sort of interact with the environment. You get points or whatever. I could see a Luigi's Mansion attraction being something akin to this. Now, Seymour, you're more of a gamer. Would this kind of jive with like a Luigi, like the branding for Luigi's Mansion, something along these lines? Could you see this for Luigi's attraction over there at Universal?
Yeah, I could see that. But knowing Nintendo, they probably put it a step above. They're gonna go all out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're gonna demand like this thing is like absolutely crazy, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, it'd be interesting, you know, to have a Luigi's Mansion attraction though. I think that's a cool way to sort of look. We have a lot of Mario right now in the current Super Nintendo world. It's kind of a nice little like what's the word for it? Like an addition to this land to now have a little area for Luigi. I think that's kind of perfect, you know. But
So
George,
that have Mario, that have Luigi, that have Donkey Kong, now possibly with the rumors with Pokemon and
Zelda.
Zelda. Now I also would like to see, and it could be something more towards like geared towards more of like the younger kids, but I'd even like to see even a little mini land of Kirby.
That would be interesting. That would be
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Yeah, Kirby would be interesting. I think Metroid actually would have a lot of potential with a theme park space. Because okay, right now we have a lot of kind of kid friendly stuff, right? Because we have Mario, we got Luigi, we got Donkey Kong. Zelda's getting a little older though.
Yeah,
That
Zelda,
is
you're like on a little bit more of the older. Yeah.
Yeah, but then Pokemon goes back down to a lot younger. So to have like a Metroid or something that's sort of a little bit older would be kind of cool, you know? I'm telling you, Nintendo, they could build an entire theme park based on Nintendo. I mean, the IP alone could sustain a park or two even. It's that strong, you know? So now, Seymour, in your opinion, like, because, you know, you're the Nintendo guy, like, do you think, though, that, like, how much of this is Universal's call and how much of this is Nintendo's call? Because these ideas are really good, you know, really really good. Is this Universal making these calls? Like, oh, we need Luigi's
I
Mansion, or is this Nintendo making these calls?
I think um, it's Nintendo. Miyamoto has been saying it for the longest time that he's pushing to be Mario to be more iconic than Mickey Mouse. And I think this is Nintendo. They've just been a very conservative with the brand ever since the Super Mario Brothers live action movie. That did very bad. You see the before that movie, you see Mario everywhere. They were in cereals, they were in macaroni and cheese, they're everything, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, it stopped suddenly because they were scared of the brand. They felt like they it felt like they were dishonest to the consumers that they were targeting to because it's Japanese culture, right? To fail, it's not that great. It's just dishonest to them. And that movie was really bad. They let Hollywood take it and destroy Mario brand. And now it's been a slow ride. There's been activist investors coming in, helping them along the way, like Value Act, pushing them, telling them, okay, it's going to be okay if you expand your IP. But what Miyamoto has been touting, because they don't want to be like Disney, where you expand too quickly, the brand gets diluted. Nintendo cares about the quality that they bring in. So if we're seeing stuff like Zelda, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon, Miyamoto doesn't have much say for Pokemon because that's a whole different entity. Even though that 50% net profit, yeah, like there's a reason for that, and they probably had plans many years in the making for this. And
And and you
yeah,
brought up a great point too, which ties into a video you and I did see more recently about watering the brand down, and it ties to Universal, where we were saying that they're expanding their parks too much overseas and all this other stuff, and it's too much too fast. And it seems like Nintendo understands that problem, and they are very careful about falling
yeah.
into that trap. You know?
And the one thing, because I'm a Nintendo shareholder, just to let everyone know that the margins for video games are high. So everything else that they need to make money on is almost like free marketing for them. So when they do these parks, when they do these movies, it's almost like you're advertising for people to get the video games. So they don't even need to earn money on this. So like I think it's great for them.
Yeah, no, it is. It is good for them. Nintendo right now is on fire. Nintendo is right now. It's like the strongest brand out there for families. I mean, it's surpassing everything right now. It's huge, and that's one thing I got to give credit to Universal for roping them in as like, dude, that was a huge catch for Universal, both in the film space and in the theme park space. Huge catch for Universal, and kudos to them for that because and it's not even like I say hot right now, but I don't want it to come off like it's trendy because Nintendo is not trendy. I'm an older dude. I'm like Jay Shear's age. I'm in my early 40s. You know what I'm saying? I've been around for a while, you know? And Nintendo has been a thing since I was like a toddler. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember playing old school NES, the Super Nintendo, all that stuff. And like that was all I wasn't even when I was a kid, Seymour, I wasn't even into Disney because I was a kid in the 80s. The 80s, Disney, early 80s, Disney was not doing so hot. You know what I'm saying? Like kids in the 80s were all into Nintendo. I was into the Nintendo branding, the Mario stuff. So for me, it's very nostalgic, but it's a huge thing, and it has been for generations. So it's here for the long haul. It's a massive, and like you said, Miyamoto said he wants Mario to be the next Mickey. You know, it's possible. I mean, it's very, very possible. And and Nintendo is very careful with their brand. They know how to move forward with it. They know how to do it in a respectful way. They're not going to milk it like, you know, like with Universal does, like with the Minions and all this other stuff. They're going to be very careful and respectful to it. Go ahead, George.
I do think, as far as branding goes, that Mario can be technically the next Mickey as far as like being the headliner.
Right.
But I personally don't think that Mario could ever reach the
Like Mickey status.
Mickey status in the sense of being beloved. Not saying that he was not
Hmm.
popular, not saying that but Mickey has this kind of charm to him that's been, through generations of over 100 years, where Mickey can kind of do anything. Like he has his own shorts,
Right.
he's done cameos, he's been the master of ceremony. Where I feel like Mario is just like a one standing notion type of character. So not saying that he could never get up to the status of Mickey Mouse, but I feel like nothing can really, in my opinion, I'm not just being biased because it's Disney, but I just feel like I really don't think Mickey could ever be touched by another kind of
Well,
character.
I think the advantage, because I think Mario is a strong character. I think he definitely get at least very close. But I think that though I do see what you're saying in the sense where I do think that Mickey does have an advantage though, in that he's almost like he's a character, but he's also a symbol. So when you're going, like for example, when you're if you're at like a park and you see three little rocks in a certain formation, you think, oh, Mickey Mouse. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like it's like a symbol, and you see it everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And it reminds you of it. So I think on that end of it, it's like almost like, that advantage. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like it's very recognizable
And
worldwide.
and it feels like Mickey has a little bit more heart to him. Like when you watch those commercials where you see the child going up and grabbing that first Mickey hug, it's just like it's that
It hits different.
magical like Kodak moment where it's like if you see a hug coming from Mario, it's like okay, it's cool, but it doesn't have that inner nostalgic connection.
Before I get to Seymour, because Seymour might disagree with us on this, and that's cool. But I do want to say, George, that you might have to turn in your Italian card if you're going to talk about Mario. I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying. Seymour, your thoughts on that? Do you see George's perspective on that, where like it is kind of a hurdle, or?
I think Japan would disagree.
There we go. There we go.
If you go to Japan, like even just going to the subways, it's all like painted in Mario theme. If you go to the Mario stores, it's almost like art museums. Mario is too iconic there. I'm sure in the States is different.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a huge Nintendo fan, so I'm biased. So, but in Japan, the culture is very different, and I think that's what they want to bring in now at Universal. That's what they want to bring, that Mario fandom that everyone loves. Yeah, and in Japan, for the Olympics when it was in Tokyo, when they brought the torch in, he was dressed up as Mario.
That's awesome.
It's so iconic. It's like the mascot for Japan now. That's how big it is over there.
Wow, that's incredible.
I think it's even bigger than some people might say Pokemon or some levels, but it's like when you hear the catchphrase "Wahoo!" or the song, the Mario theme song, right? Da, 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 da. Like you just know it's Mario.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I mean, and you're right. I mean, there's so much iconic stuff attached to that brand IP with the music. You got, and you got, all the sound effects. Like you instantly know. It's instantly recognizable of being Mario, and that's why a lot of people have asked us, George, right? Like in our live shows, like, well, what's Disney's response going to be to this? Should they buy, Sega now or something? It's like no. Nintendo is its own thing. Nintendo. If Disney was to get into the video game space,
it's not Disney's thing. I'm sorry. It's
no. Well, Nintendo could have been. I think that those two companies could work together. But if you don't have Nintendo, that's already spoken for with Universal. There's nothing else even close to that. So why even try?
See, for me, and I could be wrong, but I still think that there are certain IPs that. Not saying that Disney can't do anything.
Right.
Any company could do anything that they set their mind to. But
Right.
I feel like that there are certain IPs that are much more stronger depending on who either owns them or has a deal with them, so to speak.
Right.
Like for instance, like if Harry Potter was in Disney, which they almost did have them, they were in talks with J.K. Rowling and what have you, but.
And I'm glad they didn't, by the way, because I think
exactly that's what I'm saying. I think honestly, Disney's version and vision of what they wanted Harry Potter to be, I don't think would have worked out in the theme park world where Universal touched upon those notions. The same thing with Nintendo. I think honestly it works better with Universal. I don't really see it working in Disney because Disney may have a different outlook on it. But at the same time, if you take Avatar, you think, oh, how in the world could that be Disney? But it worked.
It worked.
So
yeah.
it's like I don't know. There's just like certain things that it just kind of fits the puzzle, depending on which company is working with which other IP.
Yeah, and not to get too far off the beaten path here, but with Harry Potter, I'm actually glad Universal got Potter for a number of reasons. Number one, the like you said, the concept that they had for the Disney stuff was not that great. I got to be honest, it really wasn't. But even aside from that, even if Disney could do better in terms of a themed experience for Potter than Universal, I'm still glad Universal got that brand because number one, I do think, and Seymour and I think we talked about this in our last video, competition is good. And I think that if they would have had Potter, it's just one too many mega franchises under one roof. I think it's good to let Universal have Potter and these other bigger franchises and do have that a little more competition, that competitive factor. I mean, it would just be, and here's the other thing too. Harry Potter is this magical franchise. Disney's got plenty of magical franchises in their own wheelhouse. You know what I'm saying? They got plenty to work with over there with the villains and the princesses and all that stuff that they can do that. Universal didn't really have anything like that. You know, I mean, really, they don't.
And if it wasn't for Potter, Universal honestly was on the verge of filing for bankruptcy. So who's even to say?
Well, Universal was sold off like I think it was like 3 or 4 times before Comcast finally got them. Like they were owned by Vivendi. It was like a wine company, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or something. They were sold off, and it was crazy.
So they wouldn't have even had Nintendo. You know, if it wasn't Potter kind of spearheaded, Universal to kind of rise from the ashes like the Phoenix, no pun intended. But
yeah.
As I said, I think Nintendo, Pokemon, Zelda,
it's brilliant.
They work well with Universal.
Yeah, no, they do. And I've been to Nintendo World, and you have too, right, George? You've been there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a fantastic experience. I just think that like for our version of it, it needs to get a little bigger.
It's definitely very pan-boxed, so to speak. Where I love the aesthetics of it. But sometimes everything is just so clustered together that and it's so packed that sometimes you can't even really focus on the details of the land. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it's still aesthetically pleasing, but it definitely needs some breathing room.
The theme park wizard friend of the channel, though, he messages me all the time, like in the DMs about like, oh, don't worry, this is coming. So they are expanding it. At least the rumor is that they are expanding it. So that's good news. I think we're supposed to get Donkey Kong, hopefully, but we'll see. But all right, gentlemen. So I'm going to move on to we're kind of still on topic, but we're going to move into the film and studio side just for a second or two. Go ahead, Seymour.
Thing.
Yeah.
With all this new things coming in that's being rumored, I actually hope that it does well for Universal because that means that Disney needs to compete. And I love competition. It makes things better. It doesn't. I know people. It's like, oh, Disney needs to die because Universal's doing better. No, we want Universal to do better so that Disney can do better. Because if one company's not competing, they're not going to do better, right?
Oh,
competition is great.
No, you're right, Seymour, 1,000%. And the people that are out there on YouTube or whatever are talking about, yeah, man, the Mouse House needs to fall. It's like, what do you think that's going to do for? You think that's going to be good for the rest of the industry if the Mouse House falls? You think that's going to be good for Universal, who feels like they're now invincible and have zero competition if Disney is no longer a thing? Of course not. It's not good for Disney if Universal falls. It's not good for Universal if Disney falls. These companies need to thrive together. You're right, Seymour. The competition is fantastic.
And that's
absolutely fantastic.
And that's probably why we're getting these IPs. It's because they want to compete with Disney.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
So we're all winning.
Right. We're all winning. Exactly.
The consumers are winning. So that's all good.
It's all good. And these are smart IPs. I've been very critical of Universal in the past with some of their IP decisions. But come on, you can't get better than Nintendo. Nintendo is top tier. You know what I'm saying? It's top shelf for sure. So yeah, but let's talk animation a little bit. I want to kind of dive into this because Seymour, it's been a couple of weeks since I had you on, and it's been crazy in the animation industry, right? We talked a lot about it like on Twitter and stuff, but I want to kind of pick your brain, and George too. I want to talk to you guys about this, since George is the godfather of the creator of migration. I really want to talk to you about it as well. No, but
Are you getting those checks?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not getting those residuals yet.
Did I get that? Oh man, see, me and Seymour are getting Bob Iger checks according to X all the time. We get those Bob Iger checks all the time, man. You know, well, you got to get some checks, bro. No, in all seriousness though, but like Seymour, I want to pick your brain on this. Like, so we hear a lot about animation, right? And it's kind of like right now, it's a real big thing because like Disney's releasing like these like Pixar movies like Soul and what have you, like re-releases into theaters because these were pandemic era movies. They didn't really get a proper theatrical release and what have you. There's been a lot of talk, you know, not just recently, but for months now, you know, or a year or more, about Pixar and it's kind of like decline. We see it with Disney Animation with the recent Wish, you know, movie. And its box office, and there's always this comparison. Well, you know, look at Universal, like look what they're doing. Look at all the demand on the Universal side, and it's like I'm not seeing all the demand on the Universal side. I'm seeing demand for Super Mario Brothers, which we talked about for 30 minutes now about how that brand is hot. And yeah, if I made a Super Mario Brothers movie, it would make $1 bajillion. It's a hot brand. People didn't go to Mario though, because they were in love with the Universal brand. People went to Mario because they were in love with the Nintendo brand. And the proof of that is look how the DreamWorks movie Teenage Kraken did. It was an abysmal failure. Trolls. It's doing okay. It's not doing great though. It's not. I mean, it's making its money back, yeah, because the budget was low, but it's nothing to write home to mom about. And even Migration, it's treading water. It's again, these movies are not putting a whole lot of butts into seats. And I keep hearing Universal, that brand has all the demand. I'm not seeing it. If it's not Mario, I'm not seeing all the demand. But Seymour, am I wrong? What's your take on this, brother?
The thing I noticed the most is that they're always comparing, Universal animation movies to Disney instead of comparing them to themselves from prior movies. So you look at like Migration right now, right? People are saying, "Oh, it's doing better than Wish." Like, okay, but compare them to Minions. They're not doing that hot. Look at it. You might have just broke even on your box office numbers, but that's not a hit. That's not a success. That's just mediocre almost. And it's getting to the point where it's like you can't just say Disney is the one that's not having these people coming seeing these movies when it's the industry trend. But they always like to look at Disney, but Disney has other issues or other reasoning why their box office numbers are lower. Like streaming is more successful compared to Universal, where Peacock is like fifth or sixth at the streaming worldwide, right? So it's like where Disney's number 2 or 3rd, depending on who you ask. So like these are not successful movies. These are just doing okay, making their money back. And right. I see it every time an animation movie comes out. These box office numbers are getting lower and lower. We looked at Elemental, right? And people were saying that movie was a flop. But if you compare that movie with the movies that are coming out now, not really. But it's just it seems to me that the goalpost has been moving every time a animation movie is coming out from each studio, without looking at the past and looking at the bigger picture that people are not coming to see the movies, unfortunately.
Yeah, the whole industry, yeah, you're right, Seymour. The whole industry is struggling right now in animation. It absolutely is. And if you really look at the numbers and you really look at how these other Universal films are doing, like you said, I mean, they're not doing buco numbers. And again, Mario is a whole other animal. Mario is a beast, you know what I'm saying? But people weren't going to Mario because of Universal. In fact, people were hesitant about Mario because it was Universal. I remember the fan conversations leading up to the Super Mario Brothers movie and how Nintendo fans were worried that Illumination was involved. It was a cause of stress more than it was like, wow, we're excited. Illumination is involved. So it's crazy. But you're right. They have these movies. They make their money back, yes, technically, because their budgets are so low, but they're not they're not putting a whole lot of butts in seats though. The numbers are overall low, and there's a difference between demand and profit margins, and a lot of fans seem to get those things confused. You know what I'm saying? It's just because a movie has a high profit margin doesn't mean it made a lot of money necessarily overall. These are two different things, you know?
You can even see it in the stock market for AMC, just from year to date, from January 3rd, right? Down 25%. The market is seeing that these movies are getting lower and lower with these numbers, and if they can't survive, I don't know what's going to happen with the movie theaters.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I know. We talk all the time, Seymour, and you brought that up to me with the AMC stuff. It's like they see the writing on the wall. They absolutely see the writing on the wall with that. What are your thoughts, George, in terms of like these animated movies, the demand for them? We keep hearing about the Mouse House, but it's like it seems like it's an industry-wide thing unless you're Mario.
So here's my take on it, and this I could be completely wrong, but I'm just going by the overall scope of just, you know, reviews of just everyday people, you know, going to the theater, you know, seeing it on streaming, what have you, you know, vloggers, YouTubers, people on social media, what have you. I personally feel like it's kind of like a psychological thing that because people are kind of going down this beaten path that Disney's woke and Disney's this and Disney's that, they're automatically having this straight tunnel vision that because of the Disney name brand for these animated films, that they just, pardon my French, they completely suck. Because it's in their own headspace that they're saying, oh, currently the Disney brand is woke, so these movies are no good. Oh, but if you take movies like Migration and you take, oh, this is coming from DreamWorks, this is coming from Universal, this is coming from, they're not woke, so automatically these movies are going to be good. So no matter what you would say, they would find some sort of way to put, as Seymour had mentioned with Migration, it pretty much just broke even. But people are going to say, oh, it's doing 100 times better than Wish. Well, yeah, if you compare it to apples to oranges, but yeah, put Migration up against the Despicable Me movies. Put Migration up to the Minions movie. There's no comparison. But why? Because you're tying it to Disney, because in your own mind, you're thinking, oh, well, Disney, these movies are no good because they're woke. Even if they didn't even see the movie. It's just right now the company is woke, so obviously the movies are woke. So it's like you can't have a comparison. It's like, can you... There's even movies that are honestly nostalgic in their own right that became cult classics without them even breaking box office status. Nightmare Before Christmas. Exactly. Right. Yes. Didn't do so well, but it had long legs over the generation, and now look at it. It's the headliner of the Halloween parties in the parks, the merch. It's, you know, so it doesn't necessarily have to be about what is going to put people's butts in the seats for the box office. I personally think if it's a good movie, watch the movie for what it is and stop titling at, oh, this is a quote-unquote Disney movie. This is a Universal movie. This is a DreamWorks movie. Yeah, even though it's being produced by a certain company, but if a movie is good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. It doesn't have to be because, oh, it's a Disney movie and it's woke, or it's a DreamWorks movie and it's more conservative, you know? So I personally think a lot of it has to do of it being a psychological thing based upon each one's individual status of how they see these companies.
I am telling you right now, George, that you are 1,000% correct on it being a psychological thing. I'm telling you right now, if Migration was a Pixar movie or it was a Disney animation movie, people would be screaming about it's this, that, and the other. It's a flop. It's trendy right now to kind of take shots at Disney. You know what I'm saying? It's just trendy. But if you really dive into the numbers, if you really look at the trends, like as Seymour was talking about, these Universal movies are not doing that hot either. Yes, they have a shoestring budget, and that's a saving grace. But that doesn't mean that the demand is there. That doesn't mean the demand is there. They're still not packing theaters in. If they clearly they're not packing theaters in because the gross numbers aren't that high. You know, when I see everyone talking about, oh, well, the theaters are empty for Wish. Well, Migration ain't doing much better. They're just as empty for Migration. It's just Migration only cost $75 million to make. But that's a different conversation, you know? That's a completely different conversation. But it's still not getting any more butts in the seats than Wish did, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So
now I do suggest to Disney that they do have to bring down their budgets.
Yes.
They have to. That is a must. That is a must do that Disney has to do. But it's not because that the film is not going to do any better in the box office. It's just it's costing Disney more money. It's just if people want to go see the movie, they will go see the movie. If it breaks even, it breaks even. But in the long run, they still have to bring down the budgets because it's going to cost Disney in the long run. That's where DreamWorks kind of has that mentality of having a low budget. But again, that does not mean it's going to make a movie better or worse.
And for the people that are, and this is credit to Alia. I gave her credit in the last video. I got to keep giving her credit because she's the one who brought it to my attention. Like the reason why Illumination and DreamWorks have a lower budget is because they do a lot of the stuff overseas. So all the folks like, you know, America First or whatever, it's like, yeah, but like Disney is in-house. It's domestic. That's why the budgets are largely higher because they're paying American workers to animate. And they should. This studio Disney has been and Pixar have been in California for decades, generations. For Disney, like 100 years in California. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They should stay in California. But the cost of doing business in the U.S. is higher than if you go overseas and do it. But Illumination and all the other studios, they can get away with that. You know what I'm saying?
And that's honestly anything. Like even with merchandise and product, consumer products, you make a product in the US, it's going to cost, 5 times more than what it would make in China or Taiwan or what have you, so it's like it's always been that way. But I feel like with film and cinema, because of everything that had gone on from 2020 on, and with a complete reset, now they have to kind of rethink of how they rebrand and how they cross promote and market and do these budgets and everything. So I mean, they got their work cut out for them, but I say that not only to Disney, I say it to all these studios.
Well, and yes, the Disney budgets have been high for a long time. That's true, but the thing is like before the pre-pandy, there's a lot has changed in our world in the last 5 or 6 years. Go ahead, Seymour.
Oh, I was just gonna say inflation as well. Everything's gone up.
Exactly.
So you have inflation, you have, the people are consuming differently too. Like, the pandemic really shot streaming, through to the moon. I mean, people really got accustomed to watching this stuff at home. Yeah. And that's a big part of the reason why we're seeing animation slump, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up a point because you just reminded me. We're looking at box office numbers of this year, which is lower than the one from 2013. And that's not even accounting inflation, because that's like, so if you think about inflation, that's even much lower than it actually is. It's doing terrible in comparison. And then Netflix revenue, it's already estimated to be more than all the movies that was released in 2023. So if you think of that, it's like people are watching streaming more than usual.
Right.
Because you have one company, Netflix, making more money than all the studios with their movies.
And all we hear, Seymour, is the streaming service. Why is Disney spending any time on that? It's a money pit. Apparently it's not. I mean, Netflix is able to crack the code, and I think Disney will eventually too. But that's the future. You know what I'm saying? To some degree, that's the future. I think people are moving away from, look, not to say the theater experience is going to go away completely. I don't think it'll go away completely. But to your point, Seymour, with AMC and all that, it's going to be diminished, and these, like for Disney, Bob Iger has said, and Seymour, you brought this up so many times, and you're right. They are saying we are going to produce less and less content. It's going to be quality over quantity. What do people think that means for AMC when there's less movies going into theaters? Oh yeah, the Taylor Swift thing did amazing. That's great. How many Taylor Swift concert movies are going to do a year, AMC? You can't live on that. You know what I'm saying? So Disney can reduce their budgets, they can make less content, but what's AMC and all these theater chains going to do? And Seymour, to your credit, you brought that up a lot on Twitter, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that. So
I think the lower budgets are great for Disney, not for the movie theaters, because now you can coincide with the streaming taking some of the profits away.
right. No, exactly.
So that once they're, because right now their ad tier has been growing significantly. I think they were saying that all new, like over 50% of new Disney Plus subscribers are on the ad tier. And even some people were thinking, why are you on the ad tier? People want to save money, right? And so you're seeing that some of the budget that's taken away, some of the profits that are coming away from the movie theaters are going to go to streaming. And when the ad tier grows, because just in November, the UK and Canada got their ad tiers, and soon other countries are going to get their ad tiers. You know, if you're going to watch a Pixar movie, like Elemental was on there for so many, you know, on the top charts for top movies in the Nielsen. Imagine if you were watching ads and you just keep playing that movie over and over. It's going to make more money than it did in the movie theaters. So that loss of profits that you made, it's just you're gonna recoup it from the streaming. It's going to take time as it grows, and the ad tiers, people are going to go to the ad tiers. But apparently, from what I'm seeing, people prefer the ad tiers instead of just paying full price and watching no ads.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And people are just getting so picky with what they see in theaters. You know, they're not seeing anything in theaters anymore. They like that home experience. Yeah, they'll go see Avatar in theaters, you know, because that's an experience in theater. You know, they'll see Star Wars, and they'll see, you know, these kind of like these epic, you know, films. But like for the most part, these smaller movies, they're opting for the home experience. And I think Disney is kind of ahead of the curve on that. And I also keep hearing people talk about Disney Plus. Oh, well, it's not profitable yet. You know, and like they're like it's like a gotcha thing. I'm like, it was never going to be profitable yet. They've always said by the end of 2024. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I see.
Yeah,
even
they
like
said that. They said that from the very beginning.
Right. I even see the Hollywood Trade doing that. Well, it's not profitable yet. Like, well, it wasn't supposed to be yet. Now, a year from now, if we're still talking, that's a different conversation. But as of right now, they're still on track. We assume. I mean, to profitability, we haven't hit that mark yet. They've always said 2024.
The same thing happened. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing happened to Netflix. They weren't profitable for many, many years, and nobody gave them any problems.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Again, because it's the Disney name, it's the Disney brand. It's like, I don't know what this this thing is that's going on. I can't even find a word for it. Like, it's just the fad now that people are just, when they see the name Disney, it's like, okay, well, they're doing this. Okay, it could be better. It could be this. It could be that. Well, how come it's not to the same standards for anything else? It's like, oh yeah, it's Universal. Yeah, you know, they're just going through a funk right now. Or as you mentioned, Seymour, it's Netflix. You know, it's okay. You know, it's just because it's Netflix. But for Disney, it's like enough is never enough.
Yeah. It's crazy. And Pixar, like, I think with Pixar, I think that the issue with Pixar too is I think Pete Docter is a brilliant guy. I really do. I really love Pete Docter. But I think the one thing though that he probably lacks that Lasseter had was Pete Docter makes a lot of like Inside Out kind of movies. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of style of movie. Real cerebral, like no pun intended with Inside Out, but real cerebral, like deeper, kind of like almost like indie film stuff, like he does, right? And you're seeing a lot of those kind of movies with Pixar now, like these releases, which I love actually. But Lasseter had some of that sprinkled in, but he also had a lot of like these summer blockbuster Toy Story and Cars, and he there was a lot of those kind of movies in there in the mix, which I think Docter has a little bit of a harder time with than Lasseter did. I think that's the one thing Pete Docter needs to step up a little bit. Go ahead.
But now I'm curious because you had mentioned, OG, about like people are picking and choosing, you know, what they want to go see in theaters. You know, they want that, you know, that Marvel film or Star Wars or even Super Mario. Why? Because it's something that is nostalgia to them that they grew up as, you know, with their childhood. But if you have an original story coming from Pixar or even Disney Animation, is that enough to bring butts into the movie theaters? And I don't think it is anymore. I think
It's
now
hard.
with the streaming, I can't really foresee, and I'm going to go balls to the wall on this. I can't foresee moving forward that a Disney animated film or a Pixar film
Right.
bringing in big time numbers as it did because of streaming. Not saying that the films aren't worthy, not saying that the films aren't good, but just the way of how theaters are nowadays, I
Right.
don't think it's going to. Now, Inside Out, that might be a different story because it was already something that was already brought in back in 2015 that
Right.
people are familiar with. So it's like when they saw it, okay, yeah, let me go take my children, or my kids are, they're familiarized with the characters, with joy and sadness and what have you. So that might be different. But when you bring original content, again, we're all screaming for original content.
Right.
But when it comes to movie theaters, is it enough for it to become a blockbuster type film that it used to be?
Right. If you were to release an Inside Out or a like
Even
first,
up, even
right,
up.
exactly. If you were to release Up today, it wouldn't do the numbers it did back then. And it has nothing to do with Disney being woke. I'm so tired of that like reductive like mindset. Like there's more to this than that. Like when people do that, it frustrates me. It's so much more than just Disney being woke. There's so many elements here with this, with the streaming and everything. Look, if you have a family of four, you know, you're a married couple, you got 2 or 3 kids, you know, family of 4, family of 5, that's expensive to go to the movie theater. That's expensive to take your kids to go see a movie. You're talking $100 or more. And you're not even, that's just to get in the door, probably. You know, you're not even talking popcorn and the $9 sodas. You know what I'm saying? It's expensive. I can see why. If I had kids, I'd probably do the same thing, man. I'd probably just wait for it to go on D+ or Peacock or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just too much. It's just too much. And that's why you're seeing, like Seymour said, with AMC and stuff, their stock price and the investors see it. It's dying on the vine. It absolutely is dying on the vine. So we'll see. But Seymour, any final thoughts before we close out today, brother? Any whether it be the parks, whether it be the studio, anything on your mind before we take off?
Just a couple of things. I just
Sure.
just wanted to say regarding with Disney. Disney is a great flywheel of a company. So when you look at one aspect going down, you can't just say the movies theater. The movies are down in the box office, yes, but streaming's gone up. So has the parks gone. Everything. So if Disney is truly woke, and everyone's boycotting Disney, how come everything else has gone up?
Right.
Right? Why are the parks doing better than ever? And you see it always on X or YouTube with the live streams, how busy it is, how packed it is. If it's truly that bad, why aren't we seeing it across all their businesses, not just one?
Right.
You would think, right? You think the cruises are doing bad? No, they're not doing bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and if it's woke, the cruise would be the last thing you would do. Like, you're gonna trap your family on a woke ship and you can't get off. like what's that about, right? Like that makes no sense. And even like Spider-Verse, which is, I know, and I've said this so many times, Spider-Verse, we know as nerds in this space, we all know the Sony deal. Okay, the soccer mom has no clue. Okay, the soccer mom that's going to take her kids out to go see the Spider-Verse has no idea about the Sony Disney Marvel deal. Okay, they go into that movie thinking it's a Disney movie because it's Marvel. It's Spider-Man. Oh, Disney does Spider-Man. It's a Disney movie. And if they saw that thing in droves, like the Mario movie, they went to Spider-Verse. That's to your point, Seymour, that they're not avoiding Disney branded stuff. They're picky with everything. So when the right thing comes along, they'll go see it. When Mario comes along, they'll go see it. When Spider-Man comes along, they'll go see it. If it's a new thing though, and it's a brand they're not sure of, whether it's like, maybe, Wish or something like that, or even Migration, it's an original thing, they're skeptical. Is it worth $100 taking my kids to see this movie? Let's wait. So it's more about that than the brand stuff. So yeah, the brand withdrawal or whatever people are calling it is vastly, vastly overrated, vastly overstated. So, but I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on, talking parks, talking studio. Always a good time. Seymour, we love having you on, brother, talking business, Nintendo, Disney, all that stuff.
Thank you.
it's been really fun having you on the team and everything. And yeah, we look forward to more content with you, brother. But if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media.
Yes, thank you. I had a blast. They can find me at X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There you go. And I will be linking Mr. Seymour Duck's X in the description. Make sure you follow Seymour Duck. He is awesome. We love Seymour. And the Italiano, the Godfather. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There you go. There you go. And I'll give you 2 coins for good measure for Seymour and the Italiano. And thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on the pretty awesome moves actually by Universal Parks to bring in Pokemon and Zelda. Really, really good stuff coming into the Universal Parks. Comment below with your thoughts on that. Luigi's Mansion, another one. Also comment below on your thoughts on the current state of animation at the box office. You know, this is a really controversial topic right now. But it's fascinating to kind of see these numbers come in and the kind of narratives kind of surrounding it. What are your thoughts on it? Disney, Pixar, Illumination, DreamWorks, all the main studios. You know, we want to hear your input on that. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.